Can't thank you enough for stopping by. PCA 2023, we're at the show, you're a member, and you're coming here next year with a booth, God willing.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the plan. Hopefully, Glenn Loop is an incredible guy. He told me to come here this year to check it out, and it's fantastic because you see everyone here, you see the camaraderie here, you see so much love, and you see a lot of people that really truly care about the product that they create, and you feel that energy just throughout the whole convention, and it's special, and I can't wait to be a part of it.
Right. Well, and so being in the Key West, the only manufacturer, one of like 12 in the entire nation that still makes cigars stateside.
Yeah.
That is no small feat in and of itself. And you handed me 3 cigars. Your Connecticut.
Yeah.
This one is this the Maduro?
That's Series 84 Maduro.
Maduro.
And that's the Primera Clase. It's a box press Perfecto. And these 3 right here are being made in Esteli. We have a line that's being made in Key West too as well.
Okay.
Guillermo Pena, he's a brother to me, and with Las Villas Cigars. He and I have been working together for moving on now to 13, 14 years. In 2009, it was crazy how it started. He and I got connected through my cousin, and she was a cigar roller in Miami.
Really?
Yes.
Where at? Just a local
she
shop?
was a local person that came from Cuba, had experience, and it just worked out like that.
She had any specific
She was at a smaller company before, just doing some simple stuff, and I get a call from her saying, "Hey, I think you need to come to Miami," and I was like, "Okay." So we sat down, meet him together, and it's been an incredible journey to just surround myself with him and his knowledge and the plans and the direction on what we would like to do moving forward in this industry. And it was super special to kind of connect through my cousin to say, hey, I'm working for this gentleman right now, rolling cigars for him in Miami. Right. I'm like, really? Come up here. Let's all talk. And we've been able to organically grow the brand, and it's again an incredible journey. And I look forward.
West at the time?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm
so
born and raised there.
Key West,
born and raised.
And you were running still Rodriguez Cigars there,
yeah.
So making everything. But she said you got to come and meet this guy?
Yes.
Why? What was so special about that?
Well, brand new. I was his first client.
Really?
Yeah, I was his first client. And, it's a very special.
She know that would be a good fit?
She knew that I wanted to create cigars, and I needed a bigger, infrastructure to do so. And this gentleman,
you couldn't do it out of the
I couldn't do it alone like that.
Capacity at the Key West
shop? It was just total capacity. Very simple. Now there's 4.
Okay, so you're talking like this is very niche.
Very niche, very simple, and then it just turned
pretty touristy, right? Like
very touristy.
You're totally bringing the Caribbean to the people who are still stateside in the Key West.
Yes.
What you could never ever accomplish getting mass production out, or not mass production.
Absolutely.
High level production.
Yeah, just that right there in itself wouldn't have been possible. She knew that I was looking, and it just so happened that came around. And I'm just like, really? All right, let's go. And here we are, and I would say less than a year, we'll hopefully be in this beautiful convention with a booth of our own.
Yeah. And how long have these cigars been out from Nicaragua? Because I see them in the monthly cigar subscriptions.
They've been out for quite some time. The Reserva Privada has been around since 2009. 2009. There's a couple other blends that me and my grandfather revived that, he had manufactured prior to 2009, and is, being able to now revive some of these blends that my grandfather had done prior is on the horizon now. It's been incredible to now see how the progressiveness of these blends come together with, having capabilities that you didn't have 10 or 12 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Regarding the quality of the tobacco.
Right.
So it's interesting to see, from my perspective, knowing what it was 10 years ago, and seeing what
Right.
what it is now, and I believe it's very competitive. It's a very great way to enjoy something that has a lot of flavor, a lot of complexity, a lot of dessert-like textures, which for me personally I enjoy.
That
And
sweetness.
there's a good level of sweetness, but I like a lot of depth. I like a lot of complexity.
Right.
I think it just, for me, there's got to be a consistent backbone of flavor regarding the blend, but little intricacies and little things and little steps along the way that it takes you puff by puff or minute by minute. Those are the things that I look for, the extra nuances that, sometimes are overlooked. I enjoy really picking it apart and seeing what it is. Like for instance, like when I, come up with samples or blends, a lot of people smoke them fresh,
Right.
right on the spot, which you should, right?
I heard you're not.
It's interesting. Well, I mean, you kind of get
Depends.
an idea of what
Right.
things would go. Like obviously Maduro wrappers right off the bat are super wet, right?
Right.
Connecticut's naturals maybe not so much. So you can kind of get in there and test some things, right?
But what about, okay, so if you bind and so sorry, you bunch the filler, bind it, and then obviously put a wrapper on it right away, don't you need like a 14 to 30-day period to kind of let that settle?
You could, which is what you should do. We've
'Cause it'll
you can
change, right?
we've been smoking cigars fresh in our hand for how many years?
Right.
Hundreds of years. People have been doing that for hundreds of years.
Right.
If you still do that to kind of get a characteristic, what I've learned is, taking these samples, aging them for 4 to 6 months, letting the humidification get to where it needs to be. Like if you were making a production.
Yeah, because
Right?
you're talking about a wet wrapper or dry
Exactly.
fillers. So what you're trying to do is make it all come together. We call it equilibration. Make it all kind of be consistent.
I have samples that are 4 to 6 months old with a year on top of them.
What does that mean?
I've created the samples, aged them for 4 to 6 months to get the humidification right, and then let them sit in their cellophane for a year,
Okay.
and then try it.
Right.
Because you're trying something that's vintage, you're trying something that should be ready, you're trying something that's a year and a half old, and then making your decision on it,
Yeah.
and then saying, this is giving us, we've given it the time that it needed, giving it the respect that it needed to not make a snap judgment.
That's so nuts.
That's what I like to do, and it's interesting because you really get a clear view into what this cigar is going to bring to the table. And if you manufacture, there's still moisture. In the wrapper, binder. You really can't get a lot there.
Nuance isn't coming out.
Yeah, it's muddled, and that's something that I've experienced to be quite interesting because, especially on the retro hail, the clarity's there. The clarity
Right.
is super there to kind of say, not so much. That needs that. Let's make it better.
Right.
Two-dimensional, needs some more complexity. You don't have to wait a year and a half to make that decision. I just choose to do that from time to time when you're making a broadleaf, a heavy wrapper, a full-bodied cigar. It just needs time. Medium to full just needs time. You just it's unnecessary. You don't need to do it. I like doing that because that clarity, that perspective is giving you something different in that moment.
Right.
Because these samples are smoked fresh, 4 to
Right.
6 months, few months right now.
And do you notice a change in flavor?
I necessarily wouldn't notice a change in flavor. I noticed that the clarity of your decision making is a lot more precise.
Okay. So the opportunity for anything to hide
It's not there.
pretty gone.
It's gone.
So now
It's been gone,
yeah,
actually.
Yeah.
It's been gone, but it's interesting to still smoke the cigar, retro hail, kind of see what the parameters are on strength and depth and complexity. It's super interesting because even if it's not the flavor profile that you desire, it's still a very enjoyable cigar because it's been aged with time and made with vintage tobacco. So there's still some good things there to kind of, realize along that way. And that's just kind of been my experience on doing things a little bit out of the box and pressing the boundary a little bit.
I love that.
Yeah.
So starting in Key West, when did you start the Key West shop?
My grandfather and my grandparents started it in 1984.
1984.
Yeah.
And then when did you get it?
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
And that's when you ended up meeting, is it Guillermo?
Guillermo Pena.
Guillermo Pena.
Yeah.
And so you were doing both. You're like figuring out how to have cigars made in Nicaragua,
Figuring out how to
and
do this. Absolutely.
how to do something stateside. So, what was the biggest challenge in juggling those two things?
The biggest challenge, is just trying to get your hands on the best quality tobacco that you can.
Really?
That was the hardest challenge.
Because I suppose you would be considered like a low quantity buyer. Or
at
Key West.
in 2009, we were extremely small.
Right.
It was just kind of simple and basic. And, getting your hands on quality tobacco is the first and foremost thing. Because without that, how do you have a chance to make a great cigar?
Yeah, and then
So we had to piece by piece trying to get things going and get our inventory on the back end going. And, going back to, how we started the journey, Guillermo is a brother to me. He's right there, on that photo. And, it's so refreshing to kind of sit back and say, wow, I'm super blessed to be around very, very, very passionate people, very educated people, and just great people in general. And it's given me a lot of confidence to now, I want to come here and do things the right way and, have a booth that is very beautiful, a product that matches it, a story that matches it, and make my hometown of Key West very proud.
Yeah, that story, that legacy that you have there, you can't let that go.
No.
And I think the cool thing about it is that, 2009 to 2023, it's a long time. And you've never had a booth here, right?
No. I've always been just so focused on creating stability, forecasting the stability. Don't want to be a fast food in and out sort of company where it's like it's quick and easy, see you later. I want to achieve that stability and making sure that our products are super competitive. That to me is everything, and that's what takes the time, because that just kind of, for me, just shows the love and respect you have for yourself and for your business and overall for the industry. Like, I wouldn't want to put something mediocre in the industry,
right?
Because you respect the industry, you love this industry so much, and that I think would be a lack of attentiveness, on our part if we were to just kind of just roll them out.
Right.
Let's just roll it up. That not there. That's not kind of me.
That's so cool.
Yeah, just kind of, like I said, you're 38, I'm 39. We're both young, man. I was 24 when I stepped into this, not knowing a whole lot, but been around some very educated people. So I think being patient, has definitely been important for us, and hopefully, it will continue to be, important, because that's kind of the framework. We don't break that for nothing.
So, yeah, that's the fact that you've taken the time to build not only the cigar brand and the blends, but now you're taking the time to understand what does it look like to be a part of the PCA, have a booth, reach out to retailers, to have this carried in more shops so more people out there can try the cigar.
Yeah.
What are your top 3 things that you're looking for? Because you asked me a very quick question beforehand. You said, what have you seen since 2016 when I started coming here till now? What brands have came and gone, and what's the secret? Or what's keeping them, what would keep you here, what would make you leave? And I said the whole part of being a part of the PCA and taking advantage of those relationships. What else are you looking for from PCA as you walk around today? Because you've already bought your booth space for next year, right?
Yeah, we're in our
You're already
process.
in.
We're in process to now get that going today. Absolutely.
So now what is it? What are the top maybe 3 things that you're really looking and focusing on?
Well, number one is always continue to build these relationships. There's so many people, there's so many things out there. That has to be, number one, is the relationship that you make along the way. The second thing that how can we tell our story?
Okay.
How can we tell it the right way, in a very humble way?
So are you looking at how other people are telling their story?
I'm looking at how they're telling their stories.
Yeah.
I want to see how they are making themselves marketable. And to me, that's important because, we're a family-owned and operated business. And I'm looking at all the family-owned and operated businesses here, and they do a great job telling their story and marketing themselves in a way where they show a lot of love and respect for their family just by how the product's positioned and how it's marketed.
Right.
That to me means a lot, because family, is everything.
Yeah. With us having little kids,
It's everything. Having a 1.5-year-old makes you think about like generation. Like what are you going to do for them? How are they going to have maybe a footing in this, or maybe share the same love and passion? And that's kind of how I've learned is through my grandfather and Guillermo and my grandmother. This is information passed down through generation. There's not a college for this.
no.
There's not a technical school for this. If you're going to get school, it's within the factory.
Even if
You
there
know what
was,
I mean?
Let's
So
say there was, everything that I've done that has been school related, real estate,
Yeah.
funeral director, all of the above, all the things that I've had to pass tests
Yeah.
for. The test is what gives me the knowledge to understand certain aspects of the business, but you absolutely do not learn every, all the new, the intricacies and the absolute, the practice.
Mhm.
Like, we could sit down and read a textbook of how to grow tobacco.
Yeah.
You put it in the ground, you do this, you do it with water, you gotta have fertilizer. But until we do it, we're not gonna know anything about growing tobacco.
And it's a constant, in my opinion, a constant evolution. You're dealing with the earth. You're
Yeah.
dealing with
Variables.
soils. You're dealing with precipitation, temperatures, elevations, minerals, all these different things that play a huge factor in the end product. And listening to the blending seminar with Christian E. Royal, the guys does great stuff, and listening to Mr. Placencia and Mr. Quesada, all those guys are incredible manufacturers. They do fantastic stuff, and just listening to what they were saying is this is constantly evolutionizing how we look at cigars.
Right.
Because microclimates, one farm can have 2 different microclimates,
Right.
So being able to kind of stay open to now pushing those boundaries is important, because if everything was so cookie cutter, so textbook, sometimes I don't think it would allow you to push these boundaries and
Right.
think outside and start doing things that are potentially not customary or not proper or not aligned with the overall, design of how it should be with the old traditional methods. Where will we be?
Right.
What boundaries would be pushed? What new flavor profiles can be created?
Right.
So that's, to me, is probably the most fascinating part of this as a whole, is how can you possibly perfect it?
Right. It's a constant learn.
In my opinion,
You can't
you're
perfect
dealing
it.
with God. You're dealing with the earth.
Yeah.
You're dealing with nature. That's beautiful.
Which is never consistent, which is never going to be the same year over year. You have to manage
Adapt.
the soil. You have to do all this stuff.
Adapting
It's
is
just completely and
absolutely,
totally different.
absolutely. And just hear these guys talk and how they adapt and how they would solve a problem. It's just incredible to kind of hear them speak and to get that, just get that knowledge from them and their perspective.
Right.
That was super refreshing to hear, because what my grandfather said, there's not a college for this. Trial and error. You're gonna make more mistakes in the beginning than what you would probably make in the middle or towards the end. And that's good in a way, because it makes us realize how small we really are. How small we really are
Yeah.
compared to nature.
Right.
Trying to figure that out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So many good things, though. So you're here getting educated to make sure that when you come to PCA next year, you're ready.
Just want to make sure that, spot, location,
Right.
booth space. Those are all, intangibles that are super important that everyone thinks about. The flow, proper location, and marketing leading up to that point, to make sure that a lot of people know that you are here. And that those are, for me, the cool parts, like the challenges, like we were talking about earlier, the production and the content, leading up to that, I think is extremely important. I've seen how it can show you how it is very important if you don't do it. If you don't come up with some type of a marketing scheme or campaign leading up to your first booth branching off naturally. So that's kind of the, now where our focus is at right now.
Danny, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, man.
Thank you for
Looking
being
forward.
at PCA this year.
Thank you for having us here and sitting us down and talking with you. It's been a pleasure, man.
100%. Another great episode here at PCA. You'll see Danny next year. If you're floating around, you see him right now. Check out Rodriguez Cigars.
Nice meeting you. Thank you. I appreciate that.